Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the legal youth community of Sri Lanka, I am very pleasure to welcome all of you are in the first sessions of the Jurists Forum Free Law Conference. This is our mainly purpose of the Free Law Conference. We want to share your legal experience and legal ideas for your future. So, in our legal youth community, we want to plan in our December law conference. So, we want to share your legal experience and we want to develop in your legal ideas in our free law conference session. So, we now start our free law conference session. And also, this is the first session we plan to the discussing in the main issues in the criminal law matter in Sri Lanka. And also be open to the main session and also you can ask the question, you can also share your ideas. And also in our so we want to mainly share your legal ideas and also in the meaningful platform we create to the in legal young legal professions and also the students and you can share your knowledge and gain to the practical insight and discuss to the important issues in the law in our Sri Lanka and to the beyond the our country. So in the today we are beginning to the our journey is a very timely and important topic. What's our topic? In the importance of the forensic evidence and digital evidence in the judicial proceeding. What do you think in the how we balance to the in our evidence in the especially in criminal matter and how what are the balance to the in civil matters and criminal matters. Those are matters are different and how to balancing the forensic evidence and also in the digital evidence in the criminal matters. So today you can mainly ideas get your mainly ideas for our main sessions. Also, uh, we are truly honored to introduce our distinguished speaker for this evening, Mr. Darshana Kuruppu, attorney at law in Sri Lanka. So, Mr. Kuruppu hold both his LL.B and LL.M honors degrees from the Faculty of Law, University of Colombo. He has over 18-year professional experience in criminal law and is known for his deep understanding and commitment to the practice of the justice. And also, from the 2016 and 2020, he served to the lecture of the Open University of Sri Lanka, where he started the knowledge and experience with many students who are young professionals and the legal field. And also in the Mr. Darshan Kuruppu and also numbers of major criminal cases in the courts and including to the Kotaketana double murder case and the Hasita Muhandiram double murder case and also the Vasu Gunavardhana cases. So you want to remember that these cases and how to balance to the in criminal evidence in these cases and also he has very expert into the criminal field and also specially handling to the defense part in the criminal matters. So and also this is today we mainly focusing to the how to balance the criminal evidence, especially to the depend on to the forensic evidence and digital evidence. So today we start in our main session and also you can share your ideas and you can share your comments for after the our main session. අපි අද දින legal youth community සංවිධානය එහෙම නැත්නම් අපේ වැඩසටහන් මාලාව ආරම්භ කරනවා. ඉතින් ඔබට විශේෂයෙන්ම ඉංග්‍රීසි මාධ්‍යයෙන් තමයි මේ වැඩසටහන තුළ ප්‍රී කන්ෆරන්ස් එක Zoom හරහා අපි සිද්ධ කරන්නේ. යම් විදිහක ඔබට ගැටලුවක් තිබෙනවා නම් ඔබට දැනගත යුතු ප්‍රශ්නයක් තිබෙනවා නම් ඔබට සිංහල මාධ්‍යෙන් ඒ ප්‍රශ්නය යොමු කිරීමේ හැකියාව තිබෙනවා. ඉතින් සියලුම මාධ්‍ය සිංහල ඉංග්‍රීසි සහ දෙමළ සියලුම මාධ්‍ය සිසුන්ට සාධාරණත්වයක් වන ආකාරයෙන් තමයි අපි ඉංග්‍රීසි මාධ්‍යෙන් මේ සෙෂන් එක සංවිධානය කරන්නේ. ඉතින් අපරාධ නීතිය තුළ ඔබට දැනගත යුතු ප්‍රධානම කරුණ විශේෂයෙන්ම අපරාධ නීතියක් තුළ වර්තමානයේදී භාවිතා වන සාක්ෂි මෙහෙයවීම සහ මේ ඇතුලේ කතා කරන්නට අවශ්‍ය වෙන මේ සාක්ෂිවල තියෙන පරස්පරතාවයන් වෙනස්කම් මොනවාද කියන එක අද දිනේදී ඔබට විශේෂයෙන්ම කතා කරන්නට ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ නීතිඥ දර්ශන කුරුප්පු මහතා සමග අවස්ථාව ලැබෙනවා. ඉතින් මතක් කරනවා ප්‍රී-කන්ෆරන්ස් සෙෂන් එක එහෙම නැත්නම් පූර්ව සම්මන්ත්‍රණ මාලාවක් විදිහට අපි විසින් මේ සංවිධානය කරන්නේ දෙසැම්බර් මාස පවත්වන ලීගල් යූත් කමියුනිටි මේන් කන්ෆරන්ස් එක එහෙම නැත්නම් දෙසැම්බර් පවත්වන කන්ෆරන්ස් එක සඳහා අවශ්‍ය කරන දැනුම සහ ඔබට පෙර සූදානමක් ලබා ගැනීම සඳහායි. ඉතින් අපි තවත් කාල වේලා නොගෙන අපේ නීතිඥ මහත්මයාට අවස්ථාව ලබා දෙනවා. ඔබට මේ සෙෂන් එක පුරාවට ඔබට ඇතිවන ගැටලු තිබෙනවා නම් ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් එතුමාට බාධාවක් නොවන ආකාරයෙන් chat box එක විවෘතයි. ඒ වගේම ඔබට ඔබේ මයික්‍රොෆෝන අන්මියුට් කර එතුමාට බාධාවක් නොවන ආකාරයෙන් විමසන්න අවස්ථාව තිබෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ඉතාමත් කරුණාවෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා ඔබේ මයික්‍රොෆෝන මේ සෙෂන් එකට බාධාවක් නොවන ආකාරයෙන් මයික්‍රොෆෝන අන්මියුට් කර තබා ගන්න ලෙස. ඉතින් අපි අපේ සෙෂන් එක ආරම්භ කරන්න සූදානම්. Sir,
Thank you.
you can start. Okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Let me first thank the legal youth community for inviting me for this very important lecture. So many we live in an era where artificial intelligence has become deeply integrated into our day-to-day activities. So today I'm going to discuss a very important topic, the importance of forensic evidence and digital evidence in judicial proceedings. So many, let me first, before discuss our topic, talk about an recent incident. I think all of you can remember recently the chairman of Waligama Pradeshiya Sabha was shot dead while he was seated on his chair. So this is a case where Sri Lanka police investigators used AI technology based on CCTV footages in order to make facial recognition of the potential suspects. And thereafter they distributed these photos across the Sri Lanka. So within very short period of time, the police could arrest 9 suspects involved in this murder of Pradesh Sabha chairman Lasantha Vikramasekara alias Midigama Lasa. And also, if you can remember recently, Sanjeeva Baganemulla Sanjeeva, a notorious criminal and underworld figure, was shot dead during the court proceedings at court number 5 of the magistrate court. So the gunman was arrested within a very short period of time using CCTV footages. So this topic, the evidence of forensic evidence and digital evidence are being now used in investigation of crimes. So there is a great saying that every criminal leaves a trace. This is actually based on forensic principle of exchange, which was introduced by one of the greatest scientists in history, Edmund Lockhart. So this principle says that when a person or object comes into contact with another, a transfer of material occurs. This concept is fundamental to the forensic science used by Sri Lankan authorities to investigate crimes and convict the accused. Please remember, forensic science and digital evidence not only being used to convict accused, there are instances where we, as defense lawyers, rely on forensic evidence or digital evidence in order to prove the innocence of the accused person. So, therefore, I'm very grateful for the legal youth community for inviting me to this timely topic today. So, uh, now, as I said, if someone thinks that I can commit a murder and get away with a murder, I would say it is a myth that has no truth at all. Because, as Edmund Lockhart correctly said, every criminal leaves some sort of traces behind the crime scene. Or the perpetrator would take something from the crime scene. So, therefore, no one can get away with a crime if the investigators are conducting a proper investigation based on forensic evidence and digital evidence. So we must remember, now we live in a world where everyone uses a smartphone, mobile phone. So within few minutes, we can get to know where the particular person is based on his mobile data. So perpetrators of a crime or crimes always will leave something behind at the crime scene, such as now fingerprints, hair, fibers from the clothing, or DNA. And also, as I said, criminal takes traces. At the same time, criminal will take away something from the crime scene, such as soil, uh, fibers, biological materials. So, in order to apprehend or arrest the real perpetrator, there is a trend in the world now. Earlier, we rely on the testimony of lay witnesses, eyewitnesses, but now we rely on new technology, forensic evidence, and digital evidence. Especially, especially victims of crimes may also retain traces of the perpetrators or their uh, persons or clothing. Especially if a rape victim is concerned, the perpetrator will leave his bodily fluids or semen in the private parts of the victim. So, therefore, I would say, as Edmund Lockhart correctly said, nobody can get away with a crime because if the investigators properly conduct the investigation, something in connection with the crime can be traced from the crime scene. So, now you all know, let me talk about in Sri Lanka, you may have heard about the Government Analyst Department. That is the primary institution responsible for forensic analysis in Sri Lanka. And there are other universities like Medical Faculty Colombo and Ragama Medical Faculty. They are also conducting forensic tests like DNA, and we use advanced technologies in order to identify perpetrators and victims using DNA and other biological samples recovered from the crime scene or from the victims. Now, recently, we all talk about DNA evidence. In Sri Lanka, I think you all know Kokandara murder case, where 6 family members were brutally murdered. So, for the first time in Sri Lankan history, Sri Lankan investigators, police, used this DNA technology in order to identify and apprehend perpetrators of these brutal killings. So, DNA technology plays a vital role in identifying individuals from biological samples left at a crime scene. So, all of you are well aware there is a uh, gene tech lab at Borella. Professor Maya Gunasekara is the first to introduce this DNA technology into our legal system. She gave evidence in various cases, including uh, Kokandara murder case and Royal Park murder case and Justice Saratambe Pitiya murder case. So, what happened in all these brutal murders are concerned, perpetrators have left something in the crime scene. Some biological samples or some materials in connected to the perpetrators. So, and if you can remember the tsunami and war. So after the tsunami tragic, I think more than 50,000 people lost their lives. Most of the dead bodies could not be identified. Thereafter, we introduced disaster victim identification. Now that is being used to identify the victims of disasters, including victims from terrorist attacks and other disasters. So remember, tracing DNA evidence is very, very vital. So when a crime is reported to the police, they should make sure that crime scene will be protected, crime scene will be safeguarded, and nobody will be allowed to enter into the crime scene if outsider enters the crime scene, the evidence left by the perpetrator can be contaminated. It is my experience in many criminal cases, even though biological samples related to the crime had been sent to the laboratories like gene tech, the report comes and report says that they could not conduct the analysis due to the contamination of these biological samples. Like in a rape case, if the semen is found from the private parts of the victim, so police should make sure that sample is properly collected, properly saved or stored, and properly documented, and then they are properly sent to the labs in order to in order to uh, have the analysis. But in most of the criminal cases, due to the lack of knowledge and lack of facilities, even though we talk about new technologies, as far as Sri Lankan criminal justice system is concerned, especially investigation agencies are concerned, and these labs are concerned, they do not have, well, they do not have very good equipments and develop equipments in order to carry out these analysis or test. But remember, now why these forensic evidence or digital evidence is very important in a criminal investigation. Now, according to section 122, 123, 124 of the Code of Criminal Procedure Act, magistrate can make any order to assist the investigators to conduct the investigation properly. So magistrate can order take biological samples from the crime scene and even from suspects in order to have a proper analysis. So once the crime is reported, I have observed in many cases police file the B report or they file a further report and seeks orders. They seek orders from the magistrate to take biological samples from suspect, including fingerprints, DNA, hair samples, whatever it is. So the law, there is a provision in the Code of Criminal Procedure Act to assist the police to continue the investigation to collect forensic and digital evidence. But as I earlier said, as a country, we are we are we have certain issues. We are facing several issues because we don't have strong equipment, and as far as the quality assurance is concerned, there is a serious issue, and we do not have enough experts in these areas. Uh, when it comes to the forensic evidence, what are the forensic evidence? So forensic science is a critical, very critical in modern criminal investigation and trials because we now utilize science and technology to solve crimes and aid in court proceedings. We as lawyers, our primary duty is towards the court to assist the soul or dispensate the justice. So in order to do so, we as lawyers must aware of this new technology, and especially I have seen, so I also have done, we always attack the chain of custody in when the forensic or when the expert witnesses come to give evidence with regard to the forensic evidence or digital evidence. That is why I said we need to very carefully collect these samples from a crime scene. Now, what happened when a man rapes a woman? The woman becomes the victim. So the man will leave semen in the private parts of the woman. So no sooner the woman makes the complaint to the police should make sure that semen from the private part of the woman will be collected. That is why meticulous collection procedure is very important. And then these sample would be sent to the labs, and then the expert will analyze these samples and make their reports, and then they will come to give evidence before the court proceedings. So this forensic science is actually combining science and technology. Science and technology. So this is very important. Remember, we are not scientists. Lawyers are not scientists. But there are scientists, they have experience, they have done research on with regard to their respective areas that they have uh, they have studied. So especially uh, as far as this forensic science is concerned, we can go uh, back to the Chinese history. This forensic science involve fingerprint to identify documents and clay materials back dating back to 1300 years ago. So remember, this science is not a new technology. This has been used for decades. The forensics. What is this forensic? It's a Latin term. Uh, Forensic comes from word forensis, meaning forum. What happened in Roman times? Crimes were decided based on speeches of the criminal and the victim. Perpetrator would come and make a speech before a forum, and the victim also would come and make a speech before the forum, and then the forum will decide who is correct, who is telling the truth. So, see, this is, I don't think anybody will agree for this procedure. So, if you are good orator, even if you are a hardcore criminal, you will be able to convince the people in this forum and get away with a crime that you committed. That is why this forensic science was later introduced in criminal investigation and trials, helping to establish the guilt of the accused. As a lawyer, it is my experience. I have done many trials and I have observed many trials. What the defense lawyers suggest to the eyewitnesses or lay witnesses that they lie. They are interested witnesses. They have not made the complaint or statements immediately soon after the crime. So their testimony, their evidence cannot be trusted upon or relied upon. So that is why the conviction rate of Sri Lanka is very, very low. If you take 100 people, I would say only 4% will be convicted. 96 people get away with the crime that they committed. I would say, as a defense lawyer, not because all those 96 people are innocent. There are innocent people among these 96 people, but most of the perpetrators are the real perpetrators responsible for the crime, but they get away with the crime they committed due to the lack of evidence or contradictory nature of the evidence given by the prosecution witnesses. So, lay people, anybody can argue, eyewitness can lie. He is an interested witness. In most of the cases, eyewitnesses are the family members or very close relatives of the victims. If someone kills somebody at your house, you will be the eyewitness. When you go to the court in order to give evidence about what you see and how your father died, the defense lawyer would suggest that you are the daughter or that you are the son of the deceased, and now you are lying because you are an interested witness. You are an interested witness. That is why I always say we must not totally rely on the evidence of eyewitnesses or lay people. Instead, relying on these eyewitnesses or lay people, we should rely on forensic evidence to ensure the reliability of evidence, which is crucial. It is very important for obtaining a verdict, either conviction or acquittal. Now, look at forensic evidence, assuming DNA evidence. There is a victim of rape. She immediately complains to the police, and police comes to the crime scene and they collect semen from her private parts, and the sample of semen is sent to the lab and DNA analysis is done. DNA report comes saying DNA of this semen is a perfect match to the perpetrator who has been arrested by the police. So, this is science. This is science. So, this forensic evidence, objective and unbiased. Forensic evidence such as DNA, fingerprints, and crime scene analysis is very objective and unbiased. You can't say science will lie. Sometimes there are instances we can attack the evidence of these evidence of expert witnesses. There are instances that we have successfully attacked the credibility of these witnesses. But in most of the time, it is very, very difficult for the defense to attack the credibility of scientific and forensic evidence. Because, and keep in mind, unlike in Sri Lanka, in other countries like America, like other Europe countries, they actually started to use this technology or forensic science and digital science in investigation in crimes and proving the crime more than 50 years ago. So now I told you crime is considered as an offense against the society, against the state. That is why when a crime is committed, when you become a victim of a crime, you are represented by the state. That is because we consider crime is an offense, crime is an act against the state, not against that individual victim or victims. It is against the state. That is why the victim of a crime is represented by the state, the police or the attorney general department. So, in order to get a conviction of a crime, if the investigators can rely on scientific evidence, the court will also, without hesitation, admit that evidence if that evidence that if the credibility of that witness is not challenged or attacked. So there are several benefits in forensic evidence, especially we establish the links now. Assuming a victim says, victim of a rape case says that I was brutally raped, so I don't know the person, I have never seen him, But if I see him again, I can identify him. That is why we have identification period. So it, but but in most of the cases, the police will not arrest the perpetrator within a very short period of time. It will take some time. But if the investigators can collect the biological samples from the body of the victim, and if the investigators can immediately send those biological samples to a lab, they will there are there are facilities to store those biological samples, and if you find a potential suspect, you can match his DNA with the biological samples collected from the private parts of this victim. So if the report comes saying that it is a perfect match, or it is matched, the police can arrest the suspect. So we can now, there are several cases pending before the Supreme Court for wrongful arrest. You know, practically what happens in our country, there are instances, I would not say that in all the times this happen, but there are instances when a brutal crime is reported, the people will get panic. Now, especially all of you use a mobile phone. So all of you have social media platforms like Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter. So you will post that there was a crime, heinous crime was committed. The police didn't arrest the culprit yet. They are unable to arrest. So police will arrest someone and get a confession, false confession, and produce to the court. I would say when you arrest an innocent man who is not responsible for the crime, that is an injustice to the victim as well, because the real perpetrator is in the society, still committing crime. This is what happened in Kotaketana area. If you can remember, Kahavatta, Kotaketana area, there were 15, I think around 15 women were brutally raped and murdered. So the investigator, for all these cases, for almost every case, they arrested someone. That someone made a confession, yeah, yes, I am the one who committed murder. I killed my mother because my mother refused to give me some money in order to buy a gift to my girlfriend. So they will arrest someone, and that someone makes a confession admitting the guilt, but at the end of the trial he gets acquitted because science says that he is not the real perpetrator. That is what happened where I defended two accused who were indicted before the High Court of Colombo for committing rape and murder of two women in this Kotaketana, mother and daughter. I can remember the name, Pushpa, the daughter. They were brutally raped and they were murdered. Police arrested four people. Among them, there was a person called Siripala, and Siripala gave a confession admitting the offense. Confession means a පාපොච්චාරණයක්. ඔබ වරද පිළි අරගෙන පොලිසියට කරනවා මම තමයි මේ මිනීමැරුම කරේ. So Siripala made a confession, yes, myself and other three accused went to the house of these two deceased persons, and I knocked the door saying, "Okay, my wife is sick. I want to take her to hospital, so I want to borrow 200 rupees. Can you open the door?" Then this mother opened the door So I and other three people, myself and other three people, went inside and raped this old lady and daughter, 29 years old daughter, and thereafter brutally murdered. So when I was retained by two accused, I had a serious issue in my mind. So killing is continuous. Now 15 odd women were murdered. The police is arresting the perpetrator for each and every murder, but still the women are being murdered. So I had an issue. I thought they arresting the wrong, they have arrested the wrong persons. I would not say in all the cases, because there are some cases are pending without prejudice to those cases. I would say I had a doubt in my mind. So I went to Magistrate Court of Palmadulla, studied all the case briefs, all the case records, and I identified there is a certain pattern of killing these women. So thereafter I went to the gene tech and I met Dr. Ruwanile Peruma, DNA expert in Sri Lanka. So I had a long discussion with him. He said that they have a DNA bank at GeneTech, Boralda. DNA bank. There, he said that DNA of 6 murders are matching to one person, one perpetrator. That perpetrator had not yet been arrested. So in my case also, he said that DNA of Siripala, who gave evidence being a crown witness, he was pardoned by the Attorney General. Attorney General has powers under Section 256 of the Criminal Procedure Code to pardon an accomplice to a crime. Accomplice mean අපරාධ අපසහායකයා. අපරාධයට සහාය වන පුද්ගලයා. So Siripala was pardoned conditionally. He was given a conditional pardon that he should give evidence against other three accused. Siripala gave evidence, but science proved that Siripala had lied. He was a pathological liar. And I called Dr. Ruwanile Peruma to establish DNA of these DNA recovered from these two deceased women. Semen had been recovered. Semen doesn't match to any one of those three accused or Siripala, who was the accomplice of the crime, Aparada Apasahakya. So the trial judge, Devika Livera Tennakorn, her ladyship justice Devika Livera Tennakorn, acquitted the accused because I argued in that case, Siripala can lie, but DNA cannot lie. These people had been wrongly accused. So they had been in remand custody for more than 3 years, if I am not mistaken, for an offense that they never committed. Can you imagine their plight? Can you imagine if you are accused of a crime that you never committed? So can you imagine your plight? So if luckily we had that scientific evidence, we had that DNA evidence. So in order to establish that they were not the real perpetrator who were responsible for the murders of those two innocent women, I would say certainly these women, they are entitled, their family members are entitled for justice. They can seek justice. But sending a wrong person to prison, sending a wrong person to death row will not help these innocent victims. And I would say that is an injustice to them as well, because real perpetrator at large, he is outside, he's among us. So remember, science, very interestingly, science, if you are innocent, if you can bring scientific evidence, forensic evidence in order to prove your innocence, that evidence cannot be challenged or rebutted by the prosecution. There is no mathematical formula or there is no presumption that evidence cannot be rebutted. But unlike oral evidence, oral testimonies, science would not lie. The lay people can lie. You and I can lie, but science will not lie. That is why forensic evidence are considered more reliable than eyewitnesses, because science cannot lie. It is less prone to human error. So, how we can use forensic evidence in criminal investigation? So, it is very important for police officers. Now, forensic evidence extends beyond analysis to courtroom. And key forensic methods including like DNA analysis, fingerprints, and ballistic tests. So we need to have expert investigators to collect these forensic materials, biological materials, or empty bullet from a crime scene if the victim was shot dead. So in order to collect these materials, without those materials getting samples contaminated, we need to have experienced investigators. So the government should employ experts in these areas in criminal investigation process. Unfortunately, unlike in other countries, in Sri Lanka, we do not have very well experienced experts in the police department. I would say that there are not enough experts in order to carry out the criminal investigation, because as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, the crime rate is increasing day by day. So now our prisons are overcrowded. So many of inmates are inside. That means crime rate is increasing day by day. So we need to have experienced, well-trained officers in order to collect these biological or other biological samples or other materials from the crime scene without getting those materials contaminated. Because if the materials or biological samples collected from the crime scene get contaminated, scientists, they will not be able to analyze these materials. So they will not be able to prepare their report, and they would send a report to court saying they were not able to they were not able to do a proper analysis because the samples had been contaminated. So careful collection is very, very important, because evidence collection is crucial to avoid contamination. Forensic scientists must ensure accurate documentation for court admissibility. So uh, now, when it comes to Sri Lanka, Section 45 of the Evidence Ordinance allows to lead these expert witnesses. Forensic, especially in a murder case, I have seen the prosecution calls, in many murder cases, I have seen prosecution has called government analyst or ballistic expert or DNA expert in order to prove their case, in order to prove the guilt of the accused. So I have seen, recently I saw a lawyer objecting, saying that our evidence ordinance doesn't have a specific provision for DNA evidence, so he objected for leading the DNA evidence. But the trial judge correctly said, true, that there is no specific legislation for DNA evidence, but Section 45 of the Evidence Ordinance permits, allow the court to lead DNA evidence. If you read the Section 45 of the Evidence Ordinance, it is very clear that Section 45 allows either party, prosecution or defense, to lead expert evidence. So the most important thing is, before leading an expert witness, we need to make sure that there will be a proper analysis. In order to have a proper analysis, there should be a proper collection of those samples. So, as I earlier said, the exchange, the core idea is that a criminal is never a clean visitor to a crime scene. They will either bring something to the scene or leave it. So, if you are a criminal investigator, you should know this concept. You should carefully examine the crime scene. And I have seen in many cases where criminals, perpetrators, have left their fingerprints or the fibers, hair, and sometimes skin cells, soil, environmental materials. So, if you are a talented, well-trained investigator, you can collect these materials and store these materials in safe custody until those materials are sent to a lab, government department or any other lab. So, scientific evidence, there are several branches. So, I think you all got an idea how science is important. If the DNA technology was not there, I would say that the prosecution will not be able to establish the guilt of that Hokandar murder case, where 6 family members were brutally murdered. If the forensic evidence was not there, I would say prosecution will not be able to prove the Royal Park murder case, where Samantha Jude murdered his girlfriend. That was a brutal murder. So, investigation into such crimes, those crimes were properly handled. Investigators did a great job. I would say they did a great job. That is why prosecution could secure conviction in those cases. And also, I would say, now, what happened in Kotaketana double murder case where I appeared, if the defense did not call DNA evidence, at that time, there was a public opinion. Even after the acquittal, people gathered in roads and protested against the order of acquittal, because by the time the verdict is delivered, social media and other medias had already convicted the people. So there was a huge public outcry. So since there was DNA evidence, the trial court could not reject the defense evidence of Dr. Ruwan Nile Peruma. Trial court relied on that evidence and acquitted the accused. Now, that is a case where accused got acquitted, not because prosecution evidence was weak, not because the evidence of prosecution witnesses were contradictory in nature, not because eyewitnesses could not remember the incident, but because they were actually innocent. Science established that, DNA established that. There is a question somebody has posed. When it comes to the analytical laboratory, how important is accreditation, the test method, and laboratory performing the test? Yeah, very, very important. That is why I said we need to have all the equipments in order to store these biological samples or any other sample until those samples are taken for analysis. Now, in gene tech, they have all the facilities in order to store biological samples or any other sample until because they get lot of samples every day. Now, especially when it comes to the maintenance cases, also when it comes to when the father says that I am not the biological father of the son, so court will always order DNA test to see whether the accused is the biological father. So now there are a lot of cases and lot of incidents where samples are being sent to the gene tech. So they will take some time to have the analysis. Until such time they store these samples very carefully in well equipped uh, machines. So they make sure that samples will not get contaminated. So I think this answer is sufficient for the question. So now, but now let's talk about what are the limitations of forensic evidence. How we can challenge the forensic evidence. I I was sent a question by one of you. Can't we challenge the forensic evidence at all? Can't the defense challenge the forensic evidence? No, there is no presumption that forensic evidence cannot be challenged. Forensic evidence can be challenged. I think if you watch real criminal trials in America and England, when the prosecutor calls a DNA expert or any other scientific expert or ballistic expert to give evidence, defense also calls another expert to challenge the credibility of the prosecution witness. So there is no mathematical formula. Science is correct. 2 plus 2, 4. Like there is no mathematical formula that science is always correct. Forensic evidence is 100% accurate. Scientists cannot, they will not make mistake. No, they are human. Always keep in mind, like us, they are also humans. They can make human errors. Limitation for forensic evidence is concerned. Mistakes during collection and analysis of evidence can lead to a wrongful conviction or wrongful acquittals. There are several cases where even in recent past, I saw in America where the court had convicted a man based on DNA evidence, and but later it was revealed that DNA reports were not accurate, correct, and they have convicted a innocent person. And there are instances. So I did a research there are more than 1,000 people had been convicted for murder and rape wrongfully after the DNA science was introduced. They have done DNA analysis because in those countries, those samples are still there even after 50, 60 years of the crime. Recently, I saw a crime was solved in a murder case where accused had raped and murdered the next door girl, and he escaped the crime scene after that. After 50 years, because the investigated collected samples from the crime scene, and they have stored, they have saved these, kept those samples very safely in a using all the developed equipments and methods. And after 50 years, they did this DNA analysis. So with DNA analysis, they could arrest the real perpetrator after 50 years. At the time of his arrest, that was the first crime. Thereafter, he has never committed any crime. He was a successful businessman. He built a legacy, but after 50 years, he had to go to jail for committing a rape and murder of a girl 50 years ago. That is why I would say collection and storing these samples are very important, but there are limitations. As I said, human errors can always occur. People make mistakes. So scientists can also make mistakes. And sometimes I have seen wrongful convictions and wrongful acquittals as well due to misinterpretation. Because forensic evidence is often subject to human interpretation. That is why when the prosecution calls a witness, expert witness, defense is also calling expert witnesses to rebut the prosecution expert or the evidence of the prosecution expert witnesses. So always there can be conflicting testimonies between these experts in the same field. But unfortunately, I don't see many defense lawyers in our country calling expert witnesses in order to prove the innocence of their clients due to various reasons. Because in the Sri Lankan context, I would say most of the litigants, most of the accused are very, very poor. They are unable to afford for an expert, so they are unable to afford for a good lawyer. So even if you did not commit a crime, sometimes there, you know, it is a, I would say it is a tragedy. It is a, I would say it is a very unfortunate, it is very, very unfortunate. Innocent man can be also convicted due to the, due to various reasons. So when uh, sometimes, as I earlier said, popular media may cause uh, now jury trial in Sri Lanka. If you are if you are charged for murder, you can seek a jury trial. But by the time of jury decide the case, media had already convicted you. So that has a serious effect. That is actually, that is a very, very serious issue in other countries like America, where the serious offenses are tried before jurors. So by the time jurors decide your case, even if the expert witnesses come and give evidence in favor of you, even if there are forensic evidence to establish your innocence, there is a serious effect because the media had already convicted you for the crime that you are not committed. Now the jurors also have already committed because media had already committed. That is why I would always say there should be a limit to the criminal investigation. There should be a limit. They should not release each and every tiny detail of a criminal investigation into the media. There are serious issues that actually, assuming you are not the real perpetrator, but police, no sooner you are arrested, they release your photos, and not only your photos, your family members' photos, your friends' photos to medias, and they make stories and they create stories. But after 10 to 15 years, even if you get acquitted from the offense that you never committed, the people of this country had already convicted you. Media had already convicted you. So I would say the police should, IGP and the parliament also should introduce new laws or provisions in order to limit the releasing of information of an investigation, because if the each and every tiny detail is released to media, you will not be able to get a fair trial. So uh, forensic science is very, very important in criminal investigation. Now, once the report is prepared by an expert, maybe DNA analysis like Dr. Ruanile Perumal, maybe a government analyst, ballistic expert. So once the report is prepared, he would send the report to court. So defense is, if you are the accused, you are entitled to get a copy of that report prior to the commencement of the trial. It is a must. You must get each and every document in relation to your investigation of your case. There is a case, Supreme Court case, Vijaypala versus Attorney General, decided in 2001, 1 SLR, page 47, if I am not mistaken, where the Supreme Court says the accused is entitled for all the statements of the prosecution witnesses. I would say the defense is entitled to all the documents as well. Unfortunately, the magistrate court, if you are accused, you are only entitled to the first statement of the complainant. I would say that this is the right time to change the law, amend the criminal procedure code. If the accused should be given a fair trial. It is a must. It is a constitutional right of an accused person. So accused person should be given the statement of all the witnesses and should be given the state documents or reports that the prosecution will rely upon prior to the commencement of the trial. But unfortunately, in the magistrate court, if you are the accused, yes, that is, somebody is asking what is that case? Vijay Pala versus Attorney General. Vijay Pala versus Attorney General. 2001, 1 SLR 47. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know. So you can Google and get this judgment, very, very important judgment. The Sri Lankan Supreme Court relied upon a judgment of South Africa. So this is one of the celebrated judgments in Sri Lankan history. So I think if every law student, every lawyer should have a copy of this judgment. So I always suggest that we should amend the criminal procedure code to enable an accused person in the magistrate court also to get all the statements of the witnesses and the documents that the prosecution is going to rely on for a fair trial. I would say, if now, right to a fair trial, as you all know, is a constitutional right. So, in order to make sure that your constitutional right is safeguarded and guaranteed, yes, correct, guaranteed, I would say you should be given all the statements and all the documents, that all the reports that the prosecution is going to rely upon. Now, I started this lecture talking about AI, artificial intelligence. Before AI, before we talk about AI, you all know we live in a digital era. So I can remember there was a case in England where a university student committed theft of a paper. So for the professor had a paper for the upcoming examination in his drawer. So one student took it and got a photocopy and brought back the real paper and kept in the drawer. So the university filed a case for committing theft. But there was an issue whether this student has committed the theft. Now, you all know, as law students and lawyers, in order to establish an offense, it's a duty of the prosecution to establish each and every ingredient of the offense. Now, when it comes to the offense of theft, accused should have permanently taken away the paper. If you now if you, now if one if the court is going to convict a person for committing theft, so assuming now you take my laptop inadvertently and brings it next date, so I can't, the court will not be able to convict you for theft. So there was an issue. Now the paper is still in the drawer. What the student has done is he has taken that paper and he has obtained a photocopy from it. So, can he be convicted? Then in England there was a discussion. So we should introduce new laws to address these digital forensic issues, and digital forensics plays an important role in criminal investigations and corporate security. I know all of you, most of you are doing commercial law, corporate security. It involves actually digital forensic, involves analyzing digital footprints to understand cyber attacks. If you can remember, when President Maithripala Sirisena came to power, I think soon after he came to power, his official website was hacked by 18 years old student. So I appeared for him. Now look at uh, here the digital footprints. Now most of the criminal cases are solved based on these digital footprints. And we know cyber attacks, and we know people steal data. And now there is a serious discussion, computer crimes. We have introduced Computer Crimes Act in 2007. Now, digital forensics is very, very important. If you are an investigator, or if you are a criminal lawyer, or if you are a prosecutor, or if you are a judge, you should know how digital forensic or how the digital system works. Now, in digital forensics also, now you know there is a separate unit in criminal investigation division, cyber crime investigation unit. Every day, more than 15 of incidents are being reported. There are several cases where identity hack, somebody is stealing your photograph and make a Facebook uh, page, or somebody will use your photographs to make a fake your identity. So he is committing a crime. He has stolen your identity. So there should be a remedy, and there are instances. Now there was very recent incident. 19 years old girl came with father, and there was a tragic story. She had a love affair with 21 years old boy. This boy was addicted to drug. So soon after the girl got to know about this, she said, "No, I can't continue this love affair." What the boy did, he released some videos of him and this girl to the internet. So the girl, when she was trying to commit suicide, father immediately father came and rescued her. When father inquired from her, why? What is the reason? Father is one of the richest businessmen. So the girl said the story. I had a love affair with so and so. So I got to know that he is a drug addicted person. I left him. Now he had released my videos to the internet. So I can't face the world. I want to commit, I want to take off my life, I want to commit suicide. So there is a remedy. There are several institutions in Sri Lanka, so you can report a crime in this nature. Cyber crimes. Cyber crimes. Now, here the digital forensics also, preservation of evidence is very, very important. Digital forensics ensures that data is collected and stored without any changes, ensuring its validity. In most of the cases, I have seen in America and other European countries, in even recently, where Indian woman was murdered by husband. The autopsy was done, and initially came she died due to natural cause. Death is natural. But sister of the deceased had a doubt. She said, my sister was very healthy, and I have suspicion about her murder, her death. So investigate into this. Initially, Australian investigation agencies were so reluctant to commence the investigation into her death because initial report, JMO report, is that death is due to natural cause. But since the sister was insisting, they commenced investigation with taking the laptop of the husband into their custody. So they went to the history. You know, when you Google something, there is a history, so you can see the history. So when these investigating officers look at the history of these websites, this man had searched how to poison a woman without tracing, and he was a doctor. So what he has done, he had he had used some chemicals, given some chemicals to his wife, so she died due to that chemical. So later, investigation revealed that her death is not a natural death, it's a homicide. The husband was taken into custody, arrested. Even if you delete the history, I know all of you, especially you delete your history, because if somebody takes your laptop, he can see what you have, what are the websites that you have had access. So you delete the history, but even if you delete the history, the expert can trace the history. That is, we call cyber crime investigation. Digital forensic helps track cyber criminals and recover stolen data, providing vital information for the prosecution. So make sure that we need to incident response. It means that if you know that there is a crime committed, even if you know that you were somebody else's photo had been stolen and made a fake account, so it's your duty to inform the relevant authorities. And incident response, it helps organizations to identify vulnerabilities, contain damage, and develop strategies to prevent future cyber attacks. So now we live in a digital era, and so as far as the every our day-to-day activities are concerned, you you physically now you don't go to the bank. You can deposit money, you can transfer money using an app, using your smart mobile phone. You can do it. It doesn't matter wherever you can transfer money or you can send money to someone else without physically going to the bank. So every corporate sector, each and every company now is using digital platforms to promote their business, to do their business. So digital forensic safeguards companies by investigating suspicious activities and uncovering corporate crimes. Especially, we have CERT, you all know. So we have enough experts in digital forensics. So digital forensics, now in even legal proceedings, digital forensics supports legal cases by providing objective digital evidence to link the suspect to crime. Sometimes uh, the accused of a murder case had been apprehended, arrested after mobile phone was recovered by the police. So when the mobile phone was recovered, there are enough data stored in the mobile phone in relation to the murder committed more than 200 or 400 kilometers away. So, so see how a small mobile phone can resolve a very serious and very complicated murder occurred 400 kilometers away from the place from the mobile phone was recovered. So that is why digital forensic is supporting legal or cases by providing objective digital evidence to link or to prove the guilt of the accused. And also you will have to remember regulatory compliances. There are regulatory compliances we need to make sure. It ensures that companies comply with the data protection regulation by investigating potential violation, that each and everyone is responsible for data protection. So how this digital forensic works is also like scientific evidence. The process of digital forensics involves several stages to ensure data is preserved, analyzed, and reported properly. Now, data collection is very, very important. investigators collect data from various sources, ensuring its integrity by creating forensic images. Now, when you make a complaint that somebody had hacked your computer or your mobile phone or your app or your bank account, so the police investigating officers will take these devices into their custody, and they will collect data, whatever the data that they need to make sure that they conduct a proper investigation. And then the examination. Soon after you collect the data, you need to examine these data. Investigators then search for signs of malicious activities and unauthorized access. So I recently got to know that many banks, private banks, are now facing this issue because of this online transfer. There are several incidents reported that the accounts of people had been hacked by various people from various countries, especially Nigeria and South African countries. So you can hack a computer of Sri Lanka being in Nigeria. Look at this technology. Yes, technology is, we, we live in a digital era. Yes, technology is very, very helpful for our day-to-day activities. But in the same time, technology is very, very dangerous if you don't use it properly. If you don't know how to use it properly, if you don't know how to protect your data properly, you can be a victim of a serious crime. So, therefore, soon after investigators collect data, they examine the data, and thereafter they analysis is done. Specialized tools process and correlate the digital evidence to extract insight. Then they get what they need to continue with the investigation. Now, the same is now assuming, now if the police were now, as I earlier said, gunman of this uh, Ganemulla Sanjiva was arrested based on CCTV footages. Now the police is relying on mobile phone mobile phone data. You can get data and locate the place where you were at the time of the crime. So service providers are bound by law to provide all these data required if there is a court order for certain. Now, as far as the Bribery Commission is concerned, with the new act, without a court order, they can directly get those phone details and data from the service providers. So after analysis is done, they what the expert do is they report. That means a report detailing the finding is creating, identifying the suspect or providing recommendation to prevent further incident. Now, in digital forensics also, when the report is prepared, report is sent to the court, so the report is given to the prosecution as well as to the accused. So here, now as far as the digital forensics, examples of digital forensics are concerned, hacking and identity theft is a very serious issue in Sri Lanka. I saw there are only 11 million women in Sri Lanka, but more than 13 million Facebook account for women. So can you imagine? I know, because all people like my mother, they don't use a Facebook account. So how can it be happen when there are 11 million women in Sri Lanka? there are 13 million Facebook accounts for women. So there is a serious issue there. So that means identity theft. So digital forensic can trace hacking activities, identify attackers, and recover stolen data. So now they can find who created this Facebook post, Facebook account. So that is how you might have seen in recent past several suspects were arrested under ICCPR Act. So arrest was done based on their Facebook account. The police can track the person who is having this Facebook account. So be careful not to commit crimes and also make sure that your identity will not be taken by somebody else. And employment of dispute. Digital forensics can uncover digital evidence related to wrongful termination or harassment in workplace disputes as well. There are several incidents. Now, I have seen there are instances. Now, before this digital era, if you want to harass somebody, you will have to harass physically or by using the land phone. Now, with this new technology, somebody can sexually harass through digital platforms. There are several cases, there are several incidents had been reported recently where the school girls had been abused through digital platforms, sexually abused. So, if you think that a person can commit grave sexual abuse or sexual abuse only physically, no, that is not correct. Sexual abuse can be now committed via digital platforms. It is been it is a very serious and common issue now. So make sure that if somebody is abusing you via digital platforms, there is a remedy for you. You can report. There is I said earlier, there is a separate unit at CID, and there are other institutions like CERT, and also intellectual property theft is a common issue, common problem. Digital forensic can trace. Now the intellectual property theft, I recently saw there's a serious allegation against a book writer saying that he has written what I have wrote on my Facebook. So intellectual property theft, digital forensics can trace unauthorized access to intellectual property, providing proof of theft. So if you think theft can only be committed physically, if somebody need to come and take something from your custody in order to commit the theft, no, that is not correct now. Even somebody can commit theft via digital platforms. So that is why digital forensic is very, very important in investigation into the crimes. And financial fraud, as I earlier said, there are several financial frauds had been reported. Those financial fraud had not been committed physically. Those financial frauds had been committed via digital platforms, sometimes by foreigners. So your money had been stolen not by a Sri Lankan citizen, somebody from Nigeria, somebody from South Africa. So forensic experts, they can analyze transaction logs. Digital forensics can uncover fraudulent activities with financial institutions. So, though we have experts, I would say we do not have required number of experts and required number of equipments in order to continue these digital forensic investigation smoothly and 100% accurately. So data recovery, this is a very serious issue all of us are facing. If our if our data is stolen, so how can we recover data? So data recovery, forensic experts can recover deleted files or data from damaged storages devices, preserving valuable information for investigation. So therefore, I invite all of you to get a knowledge about forensic science and digital forensic. It is very important whether you become a lawyer, whether you become a judge, whether you become an investigator, or whether you become a businessman, or whether you are just a person, you must know about forensic science and digital forensic, because in order to, sometimes you can be a victim. In order to avoid that, in order to make sure that your account will not be hacked by someone else, you should aware of these matters. So I would say today we had a very important discussion. Thank you again for inviting me. I think if there are questions, so you can post. I'm very, very happy to answer. Am I audible, Sevmini?
Yes, sir.
I think my time is over, right?
Yes, sir. Okay, everyone. Especially thank you, sir, and other in our yeah. So, if you have any questions or do you want to ask of our comments or others, it's open. We are open to the questions and answer session. You can unmute your microphone and you can open to our chat box.
Yes, somebody had asked how valid CCTV footage in front of law. It's valid because in terms of Evidence Amendment Act number 14 of 1995, the CCTV footage can be produced in court. So it is it is admissible evidence before court. There are several cases, especially in Vasgunawardena, DIG Vasgunawardena murder case. Prosecution relied on CCTV footages to prove the abduction of Mohammed Shyam. So CCTV footages are very, very valid and very strong evidence to establish a fact, whether from the defense or from the prosecution. Anyone want any clarification, any suggestions? So you can share whatever experience that you have with me. Um, yes, Matthew Perry's case, yes. I took an example from recent case where wife was murdered by poisoning. Yeah, but Matthew Perry also did the same. Yes. It so we have how to deal with the fraudulent survey plans. Yeah, Sataswam case. Yes, yes. Sataswam case also expert from another country, British expert came and gave evidence on behalf of the defense. Sataswam, who was one of the famous cricketer at that time. So luckily, with that evidence, Sataswam could get away with the murder that I think that he didn't commit. So thank you so much for
So one
inviting me.
thing,
Yes.
sir, at the moment, what kind of a probability do we hold where people get reluctant and refuse to be in a DNA test, or is there a must if there's a requirement or if it's been ordered by a court?
Yes, it is a must because now, if the police now if when the police is trying to take samples, if you are reluctant to give, the magistrate can make an order directing that person to give. It is a must. Now it is a must. So you can't say that I can't give my DNA. So I always say if you are not the real perpetrator, you don't need to worry about giving your samples to carry out a DNA test. That is very good question because there are people, there are lawyers also, there are people who argue that violates your right to privacy. That violates your right to privacy. I would say yes, you have a right to privacy. Right to privacy is a different concept. But when a crime is committed, if you are a potential suspect, in order to make sure whether you are the real perpetrator, we should assist the investigating officers to conduct the trial, conduct the investigation. So if you reject, the police can go before magistrate and get an order. Yes, with the rise of AI generated videos and photos, how can courts ensure the authenticity and reliability of such digital evidence? That is, yeah, yes, before digital evidence, whatever the evidence is admitted, there is a procedure. So if you deny that it was your photo, so you can have access to the devices which generated those photos. You can go with your own expert and challenge that it is not your photo and it was created, it was manufactured one. So you get access to the devices, so don't worry. So make and don't worry, the law, I consider our laws are more than enough to address all these issues, because before admitting a photo or like digitally AI generated document, the or whatever, court will see that it is a properly generated document. It was not fabricated, it was not altered, it was not manufactured one. So you have all the rights to challenge, and you have all the right to have access to the devices which generated such documents, such photos. Thank you so much. Any other issues? I would like to answer any other issue, any other question.
This is a small thing again.
Yes, please.
So I have seen instances where when share some statements and share evidences, people use the Holy Bible or the Holy Al Quran maybe. Is that for to get that? Yeah, when we came across such thing, is there an additional advantage on that, or what kind of a push it has towards a case?
I did not understand. Can you repeat your?
So when people make a statement or share some evidence using this Holy Bible and Al Quran, they promise on behalf of their religion sometime.
Yes.
So is there any additional advantage if someone follow that procedure?
No, if you give evidence, definitely before you'll have to follow that procedure in court. But if you make a statement to the police, you don't need to follow that. So, if having given oath in courts, if you lie, the court will not rely on your evidence. That is why before a witness is led, witness has to swear or witness has to take oath that he will tell the truth, whole truth, not the lie.
Okay, guys. Thank you to everyone for your engagement, patience, and the active participations. On behalf of the legal youth community of Sri Lanka, I would like to extend our heartfelt appreciations to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Darshana Kuruppu, attorney at law, for his valuable time and deep insight and for sharing his knowledge and the experience with us. And also, so today we are now is a very important topic we talk about is the so how to balance of the forensic evidence and what are the main idea of the digital evidence, especially in the evidence collection and also this is a scientific evidence. What are the investigation process and how to the engaging with the examinations of the scientific evidence and the criminal cases, and also in the DNA technology and the especially in DNA trust forensic evidence is especially focusing to the criminal trial and also the investigation process and examination. It's very important topic in the nowadays because it is the these nowadays we are openly to the in especially in the cyber crimes, and also is we engage into the openly access to the Facebook and also YouTube, LinkedIn, and other social media platform. But we think we are protect to the social media platform is not we are protected because is very facing to the cyber attacks, and also we not protect to the our passwords and emails other crime is a very and is a new is prime new steps to the is especially depend to the AI platforms and also other the technological platform. So today we are now is the especially what are the connection between forensic evidence and also the DNA and to the especially in the technologically how to use to this material. So and especially thank you, sir, for share your ideas and your experience, especially the sum of cases you explaining and what the steps of the examination system. And also, we are now, this is the criminal and also the law is not study within to the study of the books or procedure. We want to engage to the practicing, and also especially I now is especially focusing and talk about to the we want to get a specially and we want to examinations to the system. And also very thank you, sir, for engaging with us, and also especially thank you, sir, for sharing your ideas and knowledges, and also we wish you a very best.
Thank you so
uh,
much.
okay. And also, before we close, I also like to remind everyone that our next webinar in the series will be held next Saturday at 7 p.m. And also in the Jurists Forum 2025 legal conference is also we want to planning to the December. Please join with us, and also free conference session and also to the physical conference session. Okay, everyone, thank you for participating with us. Happy evening.